got a wonderful guest here with us today that, well, it's hard to explain what she went through. She's written a book, and it's called The Bridge. It says under it, between Cell Block A and a Miracle, is Psalm 91. Now, Jackie Carpenter never wanted to be an author, never intended to be one, never intended to go through the crisis that she went through to have to write this book. But it's a book for people that's been through anger, shame, heartache, crisis, that will help you so much. In her testimony, I've always said you have to have a test to have a testimony. You got to have a mess to have a message. And she's been in it, and she knows what she's talking about. So we're going to talk to Jackie about her book and about her crisis and about all the things that are interwoven in this book to help us when we go through crisis. Jackie, welcome to Friends and Neighbors.
Thank you.
So
good
glad
to
to
be
have
here.
you, girl.
So
You're
good
looking
to be
good.
here.
That outfit is striking.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
We always have good
Thank you.
guests here.
You're all gorgeous.
Yeah,
you all
too.
are.
But tell me, you know, when I read some of this, I thought, oh dear God, who wants to get a phone call like this? It's so bad.
Whoever thinks they're going to get a phone call.
Yeah, because you were just leading a normal life, going about your business, went into a grocery store, wasn't it? And what happened?
Now, let me tell you, my life was perfect. I mean, my kids were married, you know, I had no problems to deal with anymore. Life was good.
Yeah.
And, you know, they say in every lifetime that you will experience one tragedy in your life, usually, one tragedy. And I guess I never experienced one. And when something like this came out of the blue, and it was at 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning?
2 o'clock in the morning.
Bless your heart.
When I got the call that this had happened with my son.
Well, what exactly, but I want you to lead up to before that, when you went and found this book.
Okay.
That helped you.
Okay. Let me tell you, my son, this happened 6 months after he accepted God's call into the ministry. He was a home builder in Newnan, Georgia, south of Atlanta, and his older brother, I have 2 sons, and his older brother has been pastoring for 8 years, and Jason was called into the ministry in December 2007, and this happened in June 2008, and Jason was a victim of numerous copper thefts in his under construction homes.
I've heard of that a lot goes on. Because copper's so much, it's expensive.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It would cost approximately $6,000 to go in there and repair damage, replace it, get the house ready to go back out on the market again.
Out of his pocket, probably.
Oh, yeah. And he had filed numerous insurance claims, and he'd been to the police department several times begging for help. And in this subdivision where this happened, there were 8 houses under construction. And in the week of June 27th, 2 of those houses had been robbed previously in that 1 week. And it was just killing him. And so he even went to the extent of setting a car in the next house with exposed copper that looked like a law enforcement car, thinking that would
defer them, make them.
You would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
They went around the car and robbed the house. So, you know, so on Friday afternoon, June 27th, the police department did send a deputy down to meet with my son. And the advice he gave my son was terrible advice, but when you hadn't got any advice, you just soak up anything you can get.
Yeah.
And he told my son, he said, I'll tell you, Jason, you know, he said, unless you catch them yourself, they're not going to get caught because we do not have manpower to guard your houses. So this was on a Friday, and Jason thought, well, if I can just guard them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he had already made plans on Monday. He was hiring a full-time security guard to watch the houses until they could get far enough along that the copper wasn't exposed. And so he was just going to do it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And really, what he was planning to do, it didn't bother me because what the deputy told him was, hide in the woods. If anyone comes, call 911. The police, I will tell them you're going to be in the woods, and they'll just patrol the area. They'll be patrolling this area. All you do is call 911 and stay in the woods, and the police will take it from there. That sounded pretty easy to me.
Yeah.
That sounded real easy, you know.
Well, what about a permit for a gun or anything?
Well, let me tell you.
Because he's out there by himself.
The second part that he told my son, I was not comfortable with, because Jason is a perfectionist, and he kept asking him questions. What if? What if? What if? Can I do this? What this? Can I? Well, yes, he can guard his houses. Yes, he can have a gun. He told Jason, what I suggest you do, if they try to leave before the police can come take them into custody, is you yourself perform what is called a citizen's arrest. And he said, that is legal. You can do that. What I suggest you do is you bind their hands, you bind their feet, and tie them to one of the studs in the house that's under construction, and just let police take it from there. Well, look, I wasn't comfortable with that part at all.
Of course.
And Jason never planned to do that at all. He was going to watch the houses, call the police, and let them handle it. But what happened, you know, what happened was he was in the woods, and it was 15 minutes to 1 in the morning, and this is a secluded neighborhood, no vehicles up and down the road. And at 15 to 1, he heard a car coming. And, you know, I'm sure he was half asleep. And he woke up, he was sitting on a little bucket in the woods. He woke up and he saw a van go by. And it went to the end of the road and turned around, and he started praying, don't let it come here. And it didn't. It went on by. And just as he started to breathe, he saw its brake lights again, and it turned around, and it came right back into this driveway and turned this car, it was the van, turned it this way with its headlights right on him in the woods. Well, he thought they saw him. He thought they saw him. He fell off this bucket, and praise God, that gun did not go off and shoot him right there. And he dropped his cell phone, but he was able to get to it, and he called 911 and told her, I'm being robbed. He's whispering because they're there. They're close. They're here. Send the police. And then he hung up and called his father-in-law, who lives 10 minutes away. He knew Jason was there too. And Billy said, Jason, do you need me to come over there? And Jason said, I'm really scared. So Billy come over there too. Little did he know that there were no police patrolling the area. Little did he know there was no one to back him up. Little did he know that deputy never told anyone that he was going to be watching these houses. And when they were called, they were on the other side of town, and they got lost trying to find the place. So what happened is the father-in-law drives up behind this van. And now Jason is sitting in the woods, and what he sees is a van. It's pitch black. All he sees is a van. He has no clue who's in it. He has no clue how many is in it. But Billy pulls up behind it and gets out of his truck and starts walking up to approach this van. And Billy does not even own a gun. All he had was his flashlight. And Jason is sitting there in the woods seeing his father-in-law right in the firing line. So all he can do is come out. He can't sit there any longer. He come out, and he did the right thing. He fired a warning shot so they wouldn't hurt Billy. But this was a double-barrel shotgun, and it was probably 50 to 60 years old or older, and he'd been sitting on a shelf. It was one either my dad gave him or my husband, and it was just been sitting getting dusty on a shelf, never shot. And when Jason fired that warning shot, it dropped that second shell down into the chamber. Little did he know that even the slightest brush against that trigger or a jar, it would set it off. No clue, clueless. Anyway, so he approaches one side of the van, and he's scared to death. And Billy's on the other side of the van, and they start ordering him out. The two up front, totally cooperative. They got out. Jason could see shadows in that van. And Billy was trying to get the other two over to get them down on the ground so Jason could come back and tie them up, but this third one was rebellious, and he wouldn't come out of the van. Jason he didn't know if he was trying to get the guns in that van. Jason had no clue. He kept telling him, please come out. The police are on their way. I don't want to hurt you. Just come out. The police are going to take care of this. Well, finally, he did come out. But he was still very rebellious, and he did go down, and he laid down on the other side of the other two. And Jason, all he was going to do was what he was told. Tie their hands, tie their feet, expecting police to show up any minute. 5 minutes ago. So as he goes down to tie the first man, he sees that rebellious third man over there. And the father-in-law is standing in front of him, but he is getting up. And it looks to Jason like he's either going to get up and attack Billy or get up and try to get something. So all Jason knew to do was pick that gun up, run back over there, and hold it like you would a stick to push him down. And when he pushed him, it fired.
Oh, my.
Hand never touched the trigger. Well, it fired. And then Jason panicked, and they didn't know what to do. They called 911 again. This was the third call. He'd done called 911 twice while he was in the woods trying to get the police there. The third was we need an ambulance. And they saw that nobody was going to get there. Police, ambulance. They started trying to save this guy, Jason and the 911 operator and Billy, trying to work on this guy to save him. Oh. And they saw they were not getting anywhere. He had been shot right up in here, and he was bleeding to death. Oh. So Jason and Billy got him up, put him in Billy's truck, and Billy took him to the hospital. Wow. Where he died. But then, if that's not all bad enough, the deputy who told my son the mastermind behind the plan, when he found out this plan went this way, changed his whole story. And when he went to the judge's office in the early morning hours, look, before we could get an attorney out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning, when we heard Jason had been charged with felony murder and we were all nuts, this little deputy had already gone to the judge and said Jason just wanted to kill somebody. That he met Jason down there at that house, and he was in a rage, and he just wanted to kill somebody. And so they went full stream ahead to charge my son with felony murder, 3 counts of aggravated assault and possession of a firearm.
Why do you think that policeman did that, Jackie?
Well, we found out later. We had no clue then. Yeah. But later on, this thing was a 10-month ordeal, and I kept thinking all along, truth's going to come out. The truth is going to be exposed somewhere down the line. It never was. But later on, when we got closer to trial, we did find out that he had lost several jobs with law enforcement. And this was a new job. And he was so afraid he was going to lose it too, so he started trying to protect himself.
Well, did they produce that in court? Is that evidence?
Yeah, but he did a lot more damage before court. He went back to the other 2 guys that were there. We call them copper thieves, alleged copper thieves. He went back to them. And before we could even find out really what was happening, before we could really even see Jason in jail to visit with him, he had those 2 on Fox 5 News saying that my son had executed their cousin.
Oh, my word.
It was bad. Lie upon lie started out.
So many times things like that happen.
We couldn't even get our arms around any of this. We couldn't even get our arms around the fact that Jason's sitting in jail, and we couldn't find out how to even get in there and see him. And finally we did. And Sherry, I'm going to tell you something. Kelly, it was the worst thing. It was a mama's nightmare.
It had to be.
I can't, like I said, I've never had to handle anything like this. And all I know is when I went in there, they had put Jason in cell block A, and that's where we get cell block A in the book. It's where the worst of the worst are kept. It's where the murderers are. It's where they wear red and white stripes, which symbolizes their murderers. And when they brought my son in, and I had to look at him through this glass, and he'd been interrogated for hour upon hour, and the child looked so weary. And when they brought him in there and sat him down, and I'm looking at him through his glass, me, Larry, and Stephanie, his wife, and tears streaming down his face. You couldn't touch him. You couldn't do anything. And all he did was he looked at me and he started crying. He said, Mama, it was an accident. Mama, it was an accident. And all we could do was try to keep him from dying in there. We're dying out here. Everybody in my family's dying from this thing, Sherry. It doesn't affect one person.
Mind, yeah, your heart.
This 23-year-old wife, this 7-year-old little boy at home, and this went on and on. It was sad. It was sad, but the way this thing took a turn for the better, if there is it didn't take a turn for the better for a while. We had to get an attorney. We had to go to a preliminary hearing, thinking we're going to bring that baby home with us.